Welcome, second graders. Today, for our science lesson, we're going to start off with just a quick little review of a couple of the pages in the book that you just read today in EL. And then we're going to go outside and look for specific examples of what we see in the book. So I want to look at this page where it says, before a seed can grow, a grain of pollen from the stamen must land on the stigma at the top of the pistil of a flower like itself. This is called pollination. So that's like really key. And all those words just really roll around in my brain sometimes. But the main thing that you need to remember is that a little grain of pollen that is on the stamen must land on the stigma at the top of the pistil of a flower that is like itself, the same kind of flower. It's just amazing to think about. Now here's the next page. Pollination happens in different ways. Often wind blows pollen from flower to flower. So one of the ways that can happen for that little piece of pollen to land on another flower that's just like it, same kind, is the wind can blow it. So we're going to look and see. Then let's look at this page. Bees, other insects, and hummingbirds help pollinate too. While they visit flowers for their sweet juice called nectar, pollen rubs on their bodies. So right here we've got a little bee getting some nectar from that flower. Nectar is sort of like the Kool-Aid from the flower, the sweet juice that the bee eats, and it gets a little pollen on its body, and then it might go over to this flower and to get some more nectar, and the pollen might rub off onto this flower. Same kind of flower. Then right here you've got a hummingbird, and the hummingbird can get the nectar from the flower, and the pollen, see right there, might rub on its body, and then if it goes and visits another flower of that same kind, then it will pollinate that flower. They carry the pollen to another flower where it comes off onto its pistil. So two pollinators that are really important are bees and hummingbirds. Butterflies also do that. Let's look at this one last page. If a pollen grain from a flower lands on the pistil of the same kind of flower, it grows a long tube through the pistil into an oval, which is the beginning of a seed. It's also amazing. Scientist. Miss Campbell out here in her backyard. I'm actually on the Sawyer Trail right now looking for examples of flowers and how pollen happens. And I've got the perfect example right here. I looked down on the ground, and there were all over the ground on this trail, there were wild strawberries everywhere. And you can see one of the strawberries right there. And so I thought, well, if there's fruit, then that means that pollination had to happen. That's how you get fruit. And because the fruit is where the seeds are produced. And so you start with the flower. And here I thought, well, let me find a flower somewhere. So I dug around and dug around. I was almost too late. There weren't very many flowers left, but I finally found, I'm pretty sure this is a strawberry flower. And if you remember, the flower, on the flower, the stamen produces the pollen, and then somehow or another, the pollen has to travel from one flower that is the same kind as it to another flower, and the pollen has to land on the pistil, and then it travels down, and that's the ovule, and that's where the seed is produced. And the seed, also the fruit is produced. That kind of all goes together. So right here I've got a strawberry flower, and I can't really see I'm trying to get as close as I can, but you can kind of see the little pollen parts. Oops, I'm moving all over the place. And I feel sort of sad for this one. I don't know whether he'll ever get pollinated or not, because he seems to be the only one left right here. You see one right here that has been pollinated and is in the process of changing into a strawberry. And then there's a strawberry and there's a strawberry. So those are some great examples of how this all works. That's why pollinators are so important. Sometimes the wind is the pollinator, but then a lot of other creatures are pollinators, and that's what we're going to be learning about again. And I know you saw these last week, but just to look a lot closer, if you look at the middle of that, there are so many little parts. Sometimes it's hard for me to tell which are the stamens and which are the pistils, but I sort of feel like this part around the outside is the stamen, and then the inside there is the pistil. And remember, if a rose, here's one that is done, the flower is gone, and if it was pollinated, then the seeds grow down in the bottom of the rose. And we learned, or I learned, and I hope you did too, that this is where the seed is, this little bulb thing down at the bottom. And I've learned that that's called a rose hip. And that's where the seeds are, if it's a pollinated rose. Next door neighbor's garden, and they have a beautiful vegetable garden that they've planted, and they're going to be really excited because right here on this tomato plant you see some flowers. And so what they're going to be rooting for is that some bees or some hummingbirds or wasps or a butterfly, some kind of insect comes and checks out this flower. And I'm going to be really careful because everywhere there's a flower, that's a potential tomato. And so they want the flower to get fertilized or pollinated. And then if it does, then they'll have a tomato right there. And then I also noticed over here in the other part of the garden, I couldn't figure out what kind of vegetable this was, but I saw some flowers right there. And if you can see them up close, you see the stigma the stamen with the pollen, and they want those to get fertilized, a visit from some kind of a pollinator. So, and I'm pretty sure this is arugula. I looked at some in the other garden and it looked like the same thing. I'm not completely sure, but I know it's not a tomato because those flowers are a different color. Right here, if you look really close, you can see the beginning. This is their bell peppers, and you can see right there in the middle, the flowers are getting ready to grow, and that you've got to have the flower, then it needs to be pollinated. It produces the pollen, and then one piece of pollen needs to go to another flower, and then if that happens, then they'll get a pepper. These are definitely flowers that would attract all kinds of pollinators. They want that sweet nectar from all these purple flowers. And if you look up on the wall right here, this is a bee house, and that's a place for the bees to go. And because we really, there aren't any bees in there just yet, but it'll be really awesome to watch these bee houses and find out whether they end up being a busy place. Hey, Combs second grade scientists. Miss Campbell actually here, like where you can see me, because Mr. Campbell is with me. Say hey, you can talk to Mr. Campbell. Say hey.
Hello. Miss Campbell's class.
I needed him with me because I was a little bit scared about what I'm getting ready to do. And this really doesn't have that much to do with pollinators or seeds and all that, but it does have to do with the storm last week. So follow me on down here. We're going to go down here. And do you remember last week when we had that terrible storm and that tree fell down, and we identified, I hope you figured out that was a river birch, because remember that was the mystery seeds that you were supposed to figure out. So it was a river birch, come on down, that fell. And I got some of the dogs with me here. Got Briar the bloodhound, Hazel the yellow lab, and then Ollie's back there behind you. Ollie, yes, Ollie, right there, yeah. Miss Campbell's dogs. But they won't go all the way up to the thing. That's part of why I've got this with me and Mr. Campbell with me. So we're going up. Do you see right there? There is where the tree fell down. That's what on Sunday we got it all cleared out. It was a lot. And it was the coolest thing. So come on down. This is what we're going to look at. Okay, so this tree is either already somebody's home or is going to be somebody's home, or both. And if you come on and look close, it is right here. Look, here is, like, look at how hollow this tree is. Look at that. It is so hollow. And this is where we cut it off. And this was as far as we could move it. And then if you look right here. Watch, I've got this to point with. Look right up here. That part right down there. Oh, wait a minute, excuse me. This part right here broke off of that right there. And look, I don't know if you can see or not, but this is just as hollow as it can be. And so we are thinking that this part down here is hollow too. And I'm a little scared to go. I'm gonna get right up here. And oh, I can. Look, y'all. And I can, without like killing myself.
Watch out for the poison ivy.
I know there's poison ivy, but I can poke my thing in right there and then follow me down here. This is what I want to see. What I'm trying to figure out is how far. Okay, so look, I'm poking this and I'm running into stuff. Like it won't go any farther right there. Like it's going boom. Listen. So Mr. Campbell and I, I'm losing my breath. We weren't sure whether this was hollow all the way to the other side or not. But as far as I can poke it, it's not all the way through because I'm hitting something there.
It's just a lot of dirt, yeah.
Yeah, it's where it's decomposing. It's working on rotting. It's not solid like this, but it's not all the way through yet. And so what we're thinking, Mr. Campbell brought a flashlight and a headlamp so we could sort of see. I didn't know. Here's my headlamp. Does it work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How you do it? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's red. Okay.
You just slide it over.
Oh, okay. So This is going to be really attractive. Okay, here we go. Mr. Campbell is going in. I'm like Jeff Corwin, and I'm going to see if I can, how far in I can see. And that really doesn't do any good right there. Have you got that flashlight?
Yeah.
Let me see the flashlight. I'll take the headlamp off.
There you go.
Okay. I still don't think we're going to see too far because it really, see, can you get it up close? Bring it all the way up, are you? That's as far as we can go right in there. And so, and look, y'all, I love you, but I am not going to climb up there. And Mr. Campbell and my mother and everybody else is really proud of me. I actually kind of want to climb up there and look down in there, but I think maybe that would be a bad idea. So I just wanted to share that with y'all because you had kind of been involved. So bye-bye for now, and thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Absolutely. Goodbye.